Welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. Today, we've got a truly fascinating and honestly highly provocative piece of source material to unpack together. We're diving into a 2025 essay by Zhu Feng titled, Let Our Consciousness Enter the New Era First. Now, this text doesn't just casually predict the future, it outlines what the author sees as the ultimate, absolutely unavoidable paradigm shift in human civilization. It challenges literally almost everything we consider normal about how we live, work, and organize our society. We're going to break down these incredibly bold claims step by step so we can clearly understand exactly what the author is arguing. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with past technological replacements, then explore AI and automated futures, and examine the end of traditional institutions. After that, we'll look at humanity's emerging obsolescence, the shift to spiritual wealth, and finally, what it actually means to enter the new era. To lay the groundwork for his whole argument, the author starts by asking a really simple but effective rhetorical question. Think about it. Now that we have cars, high-speed trains, and airplanes, would you ever choose to travel long distances in an ox cart or a horse-drawn carriage? Probably not, right? He goes on to ask if you'd still handwrite a physical letter and wait weeks for a mailman to deliver it thousands of miles away when you literally have a smartphone in your pocket. The author uses these questions to establish a universally accepted baseline: undeniable technological progress. The point is, when a more efficient, advanced system shows up, we naturally abandon the old one without a second thought. That brings us to Section 1, Past Technological Replacements and the March of Progress. Let's see how the author scales this idea up. The text starkly contrasts the past with the present. On one hand, we have the old ways, building houses with mud bricks, using those ox carts, washing laundry by hand in freezing rivers, and writing physical letters. On the other, there's shiny new replacements: modern houses, jets, sleek appliances, and smartphones. The author's foundational premise here is that human history is basically defined by the phasing out of old methods. He's illustrating that holding on to old ways is always a losing battle against modernization. I mean, nobody fights to keep washing their clothes in a river when a washing machine is sitting right there. Progress, according to the text, is absolutely ruthless to the obsolete. Moving right along into Section 2, the text brings this historical pattern squarely into our present day. Let's talk about AI, automated futures, and the obsolescence of human labor. The author escalates from physical tools like washing machines to the impending disruption of our actual livelihoods. He lists specific human roles. We're talking accountants, lawyers, teachers, clerks, statisticians, civil servants, and even gas station workers. And he argues they are becoming entirely obsolete, mapping them directly to replacements like artificial intelligence, robots, automated systems, and compressed bureaucracies. Basically, every single job that can be programmed, according to the essay, is soon going to be replaced. The author poses a very pointed question here. With robots poised to replace almost all manual labor, do you still intend to rely on physical or routine work for your survival? He strongly suggests that striving to climb a traditional career ladder is becoming entirely pointless. Which leads us to Section 3, the end of traditional institutions. And wow, this is where the essay makes a massive conceptual leap into some radical societal dissolution. So the absolutely crucial point here is that the author applies this exact same logic of technological obsolescence to the very foundations of human society itself. The text claims that traditional marriages, families, and even the whole concept of raising children as a safeguard for your old age will be phased out. He says they'll be replaced by a concept he refers to as the second home. And it gets even more radical from there. The author states that nations themselves, specifically calling out the United States, Germany, Russia, Iran, and China, will become things of the past. They will literally turn into historical phenomena displayed in museums. Political parties? Eliminated. Religions? Eliminated. Even traditional currency, government officials, and billionaires are going to become obsolete. The author's vision is one where clinging to national borders or traditional family units is as outdated as, well, clinging to an abacus. Let's transition to Section 4, Humanity's Emerging Obsolescence. This represents the core existential crisis presented in the essay. We really need to clearly define a central concept from the text here: silicone-based life. The essay describes this as a newly emerging and growingly dominant form of non-biological life. And here is the profound threat, according to the author. As this silicone-based life emerges and grows in dominance, it threatens to render humanity an entirely unnecessary species on this planet. Think about it. What actually happens to us when we're no longer the primary workers, the primary thinkers, or the primary drivers of the economy? The text views this massive shift as a potential catalyst for what it calls a great purification. And this brings us to the author's stark warning. The text states that in this automated, silicon-run world, humans risk being reduced to merely consumers of Earth's resources and producers of waste, destructive forces rather than its protectors. It is a highly critical view of humanity's current trajectory. The essay asks us to deeply reflect on whether we are currently on the eve of this great purification. If we don't have a productive role in a silicon-dominant world, the text suggests we simply become an ecological burden. Now we pivot to Section 5, the shift to spiritual wealth. Having laid out the rather grim problem of our impending obsolescence, the author thankfully offers his proposed solution. To frame his solution, the author introduces a really sweeping axiom. Quote, "Those who do not plan for eternity are unfit to plan for even the present moment. Those who do not plan for the whole situation are unfit to plan for even a small domain." The author is calling for a massive, massive expansion in how we think. If the future doesn't require our physical labor, planning for a traditional material life is incredibly short-sighted. We need eternal, expansive thinking to survive what's coming. The essay draws a really sharp contrast between material wealth and spiritual wealth. It asks, is it actually still worthwhile to strain your brain trying to become rich in an entirely automated world? The author argues no. He suggests instead that we focus entirely on spiritual and soul wealth. The essay points out something pretty relatable. Already, most of our interactions are with virtual information on smartphones rather than face-to-face conversations. It argues that in the future, the joy and comfort brought by distant, virtual connections will far surpass physical proximity. Our need for this spiritual and soul wealth, derived from what the author calls a perfected soul garden, will totally eclipse our need for physical money or material success. Which brings us to our final section, entering the new era, and the ultimate imperative for those who want to adapt. The endpoint of this entire societal transformation, according to the source material, is the era of Life Chanyun. The essay defines this as a prophesied time of universal brotherhood, a world where the entire globe functions as one single family. This is the utopian destination the author believes will ultimately replace all those eliminated nations, political parties, and religions we discussed earlier. It's envisioned as a world completely unified, without any borders or divisions. So how does the author suggest we avoid being eliminated like old television sets and newspapers? Well, the text gives us some very specific instructions. First, we must break free from the constraints of traditional culture. Second, we have to shed the shackles of conventional production and lifestyle. Meaning, we literally need to stop clinging to the old ways of working and living. Third, we must focus inward and perfect our soul garden to endure these massive changes. And finally, the overarching theme of the entire essay, we must ensure that our consciousness enters the new era first, and only then strive to have our physical bodies follow. We've covered some incredibly sweeping and radical ideas today, moving all the way from the history of the ox cart to the total dissolution of nations and the rise of silicone-based life. The author, Zhu Feng, leaves us with a stark choice: adapt to the new spiritual realities or become entirely obsolete. So I leave you with the ultimate question drawn directly from our explainer today. As the foundations of our traditional world shift right beneath our feet, is your consciousness actually ready to enter the new era? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, Focused Learners. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.